The shadow world of intelligence holds secrets that shape global events, with agencies operating beyond public view to secure national interests. For over half a century, Mossad has been at the forefront of this clandestine arena, employing strategies that blend innovation with precision. Unraveling the stories behind their most notable missions reveals a complex tapestry of risk, ingenuity, and unwavering dedication. This exploration delves into the core principles and historical actions that define one of the world's most renowned intelligence organizations. Israeli intelligence efforts are built on a foundation of adaptability and thorough preparation, often leveraging human networks and technological advancements to gather critical information. Key operations throughout history demonstrate a pattern of targeting threats proactively, with successes in neutralizing dangers before they materialize. Public records and declassified details point to a methodology that emphasizes secrecy, speed, and strategic deception, allowing operatives to function in high-risk environments. Rumors and theories abound regarding specific tactics and undisclosed missions, adding layers of intrigue to the agency's reputation. The evolution of intelligence work reflects changing global dynamics, with modern challenges including cyber threats and asymmetric warfare. Insights from decades of experience highlight the importance of intelligence sharing, counterintelligence measures, and the ethical considerations inherent in covert actions. While much remains classified, analyzing available information provides valuable lessons in security and international relations. The enduring legacy of such agencies underscores their role in maintaining stability and responding to emerging dangers. Understanding these elements offers a clearer picture of how intelligence communities operate and influence world affairs. For those interested in the intricacies of security and espionage, continuing to explore these topics can be both enlightening and thought-provoking. If you found this perspective insightful, please like this video, subscribe for more content, and share it with others who might be curious about the hidden workings of global intelligence. Lotz cultivated friendships with officers involved in the missile program, attending tests and visiting sites where components were manufactured. He photographed missile prototypes, recorded technical specifications shared during discussions, and identified the German scientists providing expertise. The intelligence he transmitted enabled Mossad to launch a campaign of intimidation and assassination against these scientists, a parallel operation that ultimately disrupted Egypt's missile development. He also reported on Soviet military aid. Egypt had become a client state of the Soviet Union, receiving tanks, aircraft, and artillery in vast quantities. Lotz observed Soviet advisors training Egyptian troops, noted the types of equipment supplied, and assessed the Egyptians' proficiency with new weapon systems. His reports indicated that while Egyptian forces were equipped with modern Soviet hardware, training remained inadequate and morale was low. Intelligence that proved accurate during the Six-Day War. Maintaining cover required more than social performances. It required living as Wolfgang Lotz in all aspects of daily life. Mossad understood that deep cover operations fail when agents too rigidly separate their roles, when the false identity is just a performance rather than a lived reality. Lotz had to think like Wolfgang, react like Wolfgang, feel like Wolfgang. The distinction between operative and cover had to blur to the point that uncovering it required more than surveillance. It required penetrating the psychological architecture of the personality itself. Lotz married twice during his time in Egypt. His first marriage to an Israeli woman ended before the mission began. His second wife, Waltraud Neumann, was a German woman he met in Cairo. She believed he was exactly who he claimed to be. They married in 1962, and she moved into his villa, becoming part of his social world. She hosted parties, entertained officers' wives, and reinforced his cover with her own authenticity. She knew nothing of his intelligence work. He maintained the deception even in intimate moments, never revealing that Wolfgang Lotz was a fiction. The marriage created operational risks. Living with someone who believes in your false identity as real creates constant tension. A slip in speech, an unexplained absence, a reaction inconsistent with the legend. Any of these could arouse suspicion, but it also immeasurably deepened his cover. Married men openly living with foreign wives seemed settled, committed to their adopted side, less likely to be deep-cover intelligence agents. Communication with Tel Aviv required extreme caution. Lotz couldn't use phones or mail for confidential intelligence data. Instead, he relied on encoded messages transmitted by radio. Mossad provided him with a compact radio transmitter hidden in the base of a battery-powered lamp. He transmitted data at irregular intervals, always late at night when electronic surveillance was less intense, encoding reports using one-time pads, making the messages unbreakable without the corresponding key stored in Tel Aviv. The psychological costs were enormous. For years, Lotz lived without any human connection to his true self. He couldn't speak Hebrew, couldn't acknowledge his Jewish heritage, couldn't even think thoughts that might slip out in conversation in unguarded moments. The isolation inherent in deep cover operations is profound. Living among people while being completely alone, unable to trust the truth to anyone. Mossad psychologists later assessed that prolonged deep cover induces lasting identity confusion, a blurring of self-boundaries that makes returning to normal life difficult, if not impossible. Lotz's operation continued successfully through 1962 and 1963. His intelligence provided Israel with detailed knowledge of Egyptian military capabilities, missile development, and strategic planning. But by 1964, Egyptian counterintelligence began to suspect, not specifically Lotz, but the possibility of foreign agents operating in Cairo. Given the accuracy of Israeli intelligence assessments, Egypt's security services, aided by Soviet advisors experienced in counterintelligence, began surveillance on foreign citizens and Egyptians with unusual overseas contacts. Lotz's high social status made him conspicuous. His close relationships with military officers raised questions. Why would a German businessman invest so much time and money entertaining Egyptian generals? What did he gain from these relationships beyond social prestige? Counterintelligence officers initiated background checks. They contacted German authorities to verify Lotz's documents. The papers passed inspection. Mossad's forgeries were excellent, but discrepancies emerged. People who should have known Wolfgang in Germany had only vague memories. His military service records existed but lacked the depth expected from someone who served throughout the war. Minor details didn't match. Schools he claimed to attend had no records. Addresses he provided were non-existent or belonged to others. Egyptian investigators couldn't definitively prove Lotz was an imposter, but suspicion solidified. In February 1965, security forces arrested him and Waltraud at their villa. They were separated and interrogated. Waltraud, genuinely shocked, insisted her husband was exactly who he claimed. Lotz maintained his cover, protesting being accused of espionage, demanding contact with the German embassy. But during a search of the villa, investigators discovered the radio transmitter hidden in the lamp. The device was unmistakably intelligence equipment, compact, sophisticated, designed for covert communication. Faced with physical evidence, Lotz's options narrowed. He could maintain his cover and face execution as a German spy for an unnamed foreign power. Or he could reveal his true identity and stand trial as an Israeli agent, hoping pressure from the Israeli government would eventually secure his release. After several days of interrogation, Lotz admitted the truth. He was an Israeli intelligence officer operating under a false identity. The confession shocked Egyptian authorities. Their counterintelligence services suspected foreign espionage, but uncovering a Mossad agent embedded so deeply in military social circles for years was a major intelligence failure. It raised alarming questions. What information had he transmitted? How many other agents were operating undetected? Who else in Egyptian society might be hiding Israeli identities? Waltraud's reaction was equally devastating. The man she married, the life they built, the personality she knew, all of it was fiction. Wolfgang Lotz did not exist. She was married to a stranger, an operative who used their relationship as cover for spying. The betrayal was complete. She herself faced legal jeopardy. Egyptian authorities arrested her as an accomplice, believing she must have known about his activities. She maintained her innocence, claiming she had been completely deceived. This claim was plausible. Lotz himself confirmed his wife knew nothing of his intelligence work, but Egyptian investigators remained skeptical. The trial began in July 1965 and was conducted with great publicity. Nasser's government used the case to demonstrate vigilance against Israeli espionage and to embarrass Western countries whose passports were used in the operation. Lotz was charged with espionage, sabotage, and treason. The last charge was technically inapplicable since he wasn't Egyptian, but it was framed to emphasize the severity of penetrating Egyptian society under false pretenses. Evidence presented at trial was damning. The radio transmitter, encoded messages, photographs of military sites found in his possession, and testimony from officers who socialized with him, now realizing their conversations were intelligence gathering. Lotz offered a limited defense, admitting his activities but arguing he acted under orders, that intelligence gathering is a legitimate act of war between conflicting nations, and that he caused no personal harm. The court found him and Waltraud guilty on all charges. Lotz was sentenced to life imprisonment with hard labor. Waltraud received a lighter sentence, 3 years. Egyptian authorities agreed she was likely an unwitting participant. Both were transferred to Egyptian prisons, Lotz to a military institution, Waltraud to a civilian women's prison. Lotz spent over 2 years in Egyptian confinement. Conditions were harsh. Limited food, minimal contact with the outside world, and constant awareness that as an Israeli spy, he was particularly vulnerable to harsh treatment. But Egyptian authorities also recognized his potential value in negotiations. Israeli intelligence valued operatives who demonstrated capabilities under deep cover. Lotz's release could be exchanged for Egyptian prisoners held by Israel. An opportunity arose after the Six-Day War in June 1967. Israel's stunning military victory left Egypt humiliated and desperate to regain prisoners, territory, and dignity. Among Egyptian prisoners held by Israel were high-ranking military officers captured during the conflict. Prisoner exchange negotiations began through mediation channels, the Red Cross, UN representatives, and neutral diplomats. In February 1968, after protracted talks, Egypt agreed to release Lotz and Waltraud as part of a broader prisoner exchange. Egyptian officials presented the release as a humanitarian gesture, not a concession, publicly stating both had served their sentences properly. But terms of less than 3 years from a life sentence made it clear strategic calculations outweighed justice. Lotz and Waltraud were transferred to a neutral location and handed over to the Israeli side. They returned to Israel as heroes. Lotz was celebrated for his intelligence work, Waltraud as a victim of espionage caught in circumstances beyond her control. Israeli media widely covered the story, portraying Lotz as a master spy whose intelligence contributed to Israel's military superiority. Lotz faced difficulties adapting to civilian life. After years of living as Wolfgang, returning to Zev was disorienting. He had been in a false identity so long that his original self felt alien. Psychologists working with returned deep cover operatives describe this phenomenon as identity dissolution, where the line between real and performed self becomes so blurred that returning to the original feels like adopting another disguise. His marriage to Waltraud did not survive. The foundation of their relationship was deception. She married a man who didn't exist, lived with someone pretending to be her husband, used as operational cover. The betrayal, though not malicious, was complete. They divorced soon after returning to Israel. Waltraud eventually returned to Germany, deciding to build her life away from the world of intelligence that destroyed her marriage. Lotz married again, this time to an Israeli woman with whom he could be completely honest. He wrote memoirs, The Champagne Spy, published in 1972 with Mossad's approval. The book became an international bestseller, translated into many languages, cementing his reputation as one of the most successful deep cover agents in intelligence history. He gave interviews, appeared on television, and became a public figure. Unusual for intelligence operatives, but acceptable given his cover was irrevocably blown. He struggled with alcoholism, a common problem among intelligence operatives who spent years under extreme stress. The champagne parties that were an operational necessity became personal demons. He sought treatment for alcoholism, speaking openly about the psychological costs of spying. He advocated for better support systems for intelligence officers returning from deep cover, arguing that Mossad excelled at preparing him for the mission, but inadequately for its aftermath. Lotz died on May 14, 1993 at age 72. He was buried in Israel with military honors, officially recognized as a national hero whose intelligence work contributed to Israel's security in a critical period. His operation continues to be studied in intelligence academies worldwide, as an example of successful deep cover penetration and false identity creation. The information provided by Lotz during his years in Cairo proved strategically valuable. His reports on Egyptian military morale, Soviet equipment supplies, and command structure weaknesses formed the basis for Israeli planning in the Six-Day War. While his intelligence wasn't solely decisive, Israel's victory resulted from multiple factors including superior training, air advantage, and better logistics. Lotz's contributions provided tactical advantages commanders utilized during the conflict. His intelligence on Egypt's missile program was particularly significant. The information he gathered enabled Mossad to identify and target German scientists assisting Egyptian development. Several scientists received threatening letters, some survived assassination attempts, and others were forced to cease cooperation with Egypt under pressure from German authorities. The campaign sufficiently disrupted missile development that by 1967, Egypt's missile capabilities remained limited and posed minimal threat during the war. Lotz also provided detailed information on Egyptian air defense, radar installations, and airfield locations. The planning of the Israeli Air Force's first strike in the war, which destroyed most of Egypt's aircraft on the ground, benefited from intelligence provided by Lotz and other sources on airfield layouts, aircraft dispersal patterns, and defensive capabilities. The operation demonstrated the value of human intelligence in supplementing technical collection methods. Satellites could photograph military sites, but they couldn't reveal morale issues, command disputes, or strategic thinking. Only human sources embedded in enemy society could provide the contextual intelligence needed to understand not just capabilities, but intentions and vulnerabilities. Lotz's operation raised ethical questions intelligence agencies continually face. What is acceptable in creating and maintaining false identities? Is deceiving innocent people like Waltraud morally justified if it serves national security goals? Where are the boundaries between legitimate intelligence gathering and personal betrayal? Mossad's viewpoint, though never officially stated in such terms, was that operational necessity justifies extreme deception. National survival, literally in Israel's case, given threats from neighbors seeking its destruction, outweighs individual rights to truth in relationships. Waltraud's suffering, while regrettable, was collateral damage in an intelligence operation serving a broader strategic imperative. From this perspective, Lotz's deception was not personal betrayal but professional necessity. Critics argued that using intimate relationships as intelligence cover crosses ethical boundaries regardless of strategic justification. Waltraud had no choice in becoming part of an intelligence operation. Her consent to marriage was obtained through fraud. The psychological damage she suffered upon learning years of her life were built on lies was a direct consequence of operational decisions prioritizing intelligence collection over her well-being. The fact that Mossad approved such operations suggested institutional willingness to inflict significant personal harm in pursuit of state goals. Lotz himself remained conflicted. In late-life interviews, he acknowledged the pain his deception caused Waltraud and expressed regret. But he also argued his mission was necessary, that Israel faced existential threats requiring extreme measures, and that intelligence work is inextricably linked to deception. The tension between these positions, regret for personal harm and pride in professional success, characterized his reflection on the operation. Lotz's operation became a template for subsequent deep cover missions. Intelligence services worldwide studied his methods. Meticulous false identity creation, years spent building social networks before operational use, leveraging legitimate business as cover, and the psychological preparation required for sustained deception. The operation demonstrated that with sufficient resources and psychological resilience, agents can be embedded in hostile societies for long periods. But the operation also revealed limitations. Deep cover is extremely costly. Years of preparation, constant support, and acceptance that one agent can only access limited information no matter how well placed. Lotz provided valuable intelligence, but his access was constrained by social networks, not secret documents or high-level strategic planning. The cost-benefit analysis of deep cover versus other collection methods remains debated in intelligence communities. Technological advances have made deep cover both easier and more difficult. Easier because digital communications allow more sophisticated cover creation and secure communication. More difficult because the same technology enables more thorough background checks. The internet creates digital trails that must be painstakingly fabricated and maintained. Social media presence, online records, and cross-referencing databases make false identities more vulnerable to exposure. A modern Wolfgang Lotz would require an entire team constantly updating and maintaining his digital legend. Psychological understanding of deep cover has also evolved. Intelligence agencies now recognize that prolonged immersion in a false identity causes lasting psychological effects, including identity confusion, difficulties maintaining authentic relationships after cover is blown, and higher rates of substance abuse and depression. There are better support systems for operatives returning from deep cover, though the fundamental problem remains. Living as someone else for years changes who you are in ways that cannot be fully reversed. The story of Wolfgang Lotz endures because it reflects something essential about intelligence work: the intersection of audacity and deception, the willingness to so fully inhabit a fiction that it becomes a form of truth. His champagne parties in Cairo were simultaneously genuine social gatherings and complex intelligence operations, real in their festivity, false in their purpose. The officers who considered him a friend weren't mistaken in the reality of the friendship. They simply didn't know about its secondary function. This duality defines the moral ambiguity of spying. Lotz genuinely liked many of the people whose secrets he stole. He enjoyed the parties he threw and the relationships he cultivated. But these authentic feelings coexisted with a complete willingness to betray trust for strategic goals. The contradiction wasn't hypocrisy but professionalism, the ability to maintain genuine human connection while exploiting it for intelligence purposes. For Egypt, the Lotz case became a cautionary tale of counterintelligence failures. The fact that a foreign agent operated undetected for years in military social circles revealed serious security gaps. Egyptian intelligence services instituted stricter protocols for foreign citizens, enhanced surveillance of interactions between foreigners and military personnel, and developed more sophisticated identity verification methods. Improvements came too late to prevent Lotz's intelligence gathering, but they made subsequent penetration more difficult. The legacy of the Champagne spy stands as a monument to the possibilities of deception and its costs. He proved that with sufficient preparation and psychological fortitude, an intelligence officer can disappear into a false identity so completely that even intimate relationships conceal the truth. But he also demonstrated that such operations exact a deep personal price: shattered marriages, fragmented identities, and the haunting question of which self was real, the one born in Germany, the one shaped in Cairo, or the one returning to Israel bearing the ghosts of both. If this journey into deep cover, deception, and the champagne-soaked world of Cold War espionage captivated you, please like this video, subscribe to our channel, and share it with others who enjoy exploring the hidden operations that shape history. Your engagement helps us bring more remarkable stories to light. Let us know in the comments, could modern deep cover operations like Lotz's still succeed in today's digital world, or has technology made such long-term false identities impossible to maintain? We look forward to your thoughts.